All right, what's up everyone? This is Don with Third Creative, and this is the walkthrough tutorial video for Rally Multisport. In this video, I'm basically going to go through every single layer, cover all the processes, and hopefully by the time I'm done, I will have covered anything and everything that you could possibly need to know in order to use the template, and not only that, but create the best images possible with it. So basically what I'm trying to say is it's super thorough and it might be a little long. So if you're here for something specific, feel free to jump in, scrub through, find what you need, and jump back out. Before we get started, touch on a few things. I originally created this for Bulldog Cheer. It is a double image. It does show feet. It's got nice reflections, ground shadows. Makes for a very impactful image, but as we all know, double images and showing feet, it's not necessarily right for every job. And so I make sure that I cover all the bases. And first things first, I just want to clarify that you do have the option to hide feet on all of the files, all of the image files. So if you're not up for reflections on 200 rec athletes, totally get it. I've got you covered. Also, double images aren't right for every job. So as you can see here, I created a single image with no feet showing. I'm going to demonstrate what you would need to do in order to set it up for that. Just a couple steps involved there, but also created just a couple sample images. I didn't get too carried away just because I was trying to get this thing out. It's August, so it's about to get crazy, but you can see I've got just white and a single color blue here, kind of what that looks like. You can see a few different color schemes. Actually, I think I still have it up. Let me jump over here. This is something I was working on for cross country. I changed the font on this one, so that's something that you can consider to get different looks. This is a font called Bigger. It's one of my favorites. Just know that on this one, it only shows up if you are in uppercase or have caps lock. So don't let that throw you off, but just an idea that you can change the font, get a little bit different look if you want to. But yeah, I like the image. I like the looks that you can get with it, and let's jump into it. So we're going back to Photoshop, and we're working with a 4x5 vertical file. Keep in mind that basically everything that we go over here is pretty consistent across all the files. There's a few unique things about some of the other files, but for the most part, this will get you covered, get you going. Normally I start at the bottom in the background layers folder and just work my way up, but before we jump into that, I'm going to do things a little bit differently. Today I'm going to start off by demonstrating what you would do to set this up for just a single subject image. So first step's very simple. You just come towards the top to this upper red folder and turn it off. It's the layer subjects that you have down here, excuse me, the lower subject that you have towards the bottom. So now we just have our single subject. The only problem right now is that, you know, it's up in the left hand corner and we've got this weird negative space down here, and you can try to fill that up with the athlete's name if you want to, and that might look good if you make it bigger, maybe for a banner, but more often than not, I feel like you're going to want to scale this maybe a little bit larger, maybe center it a little bit more. So I want to demonstrate what you need to do that, because there's several layers involved in this, starting with this one with the color overlay that is orange. It's entitled Color Spill Lower Legs. You want to start by selecting that layer, hold down Shift, and come down 2 layer folders to where it says Subject Frame Layer and select that. So you can see we have all 3 selected. We've got our Move tool here, so you can see that we've got the transform controls. So if you click on this little anchor point on the side to activate it, then bring your cursor inside, you can click and drag to move it all around. So this is moving the layer mask, it's moving the frame, it's moving all of it. If you want it to be bigger, you would click on one of these anchor points and drag out or in. Now, the way mine is set up, I need to hold down Shift in order to maintain proportions, make it larger or smaller. If I don't, then it starts to do weird things like that. So you know, however you have yours set up, just know that you may or may not need to hold down Shift when you're scaling it larger and smaller. Now, once you get it kind of where you want it, hit the check mark. One other thing that I'll share with you is in this subject frame layer folder. If you open it up, you will see that we have our subject frame. It's a shape layer. If you select that and you see the transform controls and click on an anchor, now you can click on an anchor again and drag out or drag in. Same thing for the top, drag up, drag down. Just don't do it on the bottom because the mask is lined up on the bottom, and so you'll see you'll have to fix the mask or you'll have to undo what you did in order to get that back. But just know that you can come back and move this again later. If you get your text layers in there, you need to move it a little bit, you can. Just have all three of these layers selected when you do it. And if you make it bigger or smaller, just make sure you don't stretch it out. Just remember you may need to hold down shift. And that's it. So let's get this thing back the way that it was. I think that's pretty close. And now we can go to the very bottom. All right, so we've got our background layers. There's not a whole lot going on there in this one. The very bottom, change your background color. 99.9% of you will already know how this works, but this little icon here, you double click on it, it'll bring up your color picker. You've got your little prism here that you can select the right color you're looking for, and then it's just a matter of how light or dark you want it, how saturated or unsaturated you want it. You can move around. Obviously this doesn't look good, but you get the idea of how you would select the color that you want to use. Next we have our darken bottom edge. This is something I added mostly for the double images to add a little bit of dimension. So if you see, if I turn it off, it just kind of evens it all out. So you may or may not want to use this. I will be honest, it doesn't show up boldly on white. But if you were to, well, I guess it doesn't show up boldly at all, but it's very subtle. If you want it to be more prominent, if you double click on this icon to get your properties up, you can use this top slider to make it darker or a little lighter, depending on what you're looking for. But it's up to you whether you leave it on there or not. The next thing that we have is a spotlight effect on the ground, and basically it just lands right here under your subject. So for example, if you went with a little darker of a background, you can see it a little bit better. So it's right there. And so if it's too prominent, you may want to reduce the opacity, or you could even turn it off. It's just there to add a little extra level of realism and depth. All right, get it back the way it was. That's it. We'll close that up. Next, we have our text layers. If I turn it off, you can see we lose all the text layers except for one on this left side, and that's only because I wanted it to overlap all of this. I like the way that it looked. If you don't like that, you can come up here, select it, and drag it down and drop it inside this folder so it's all in the background. Totally up to you. I like the way that it looked like this. So this one's out here all by its lonesome. The rest is in this text layers folder. So we'll start at the bottom. On the right hand side, we've got our vertical background accent text right side. So it's very subtle, but the word cheer is back here. And it's transparent because I had the fill at 0. You could bring it up to see the color if you want, but it's transparent. It's just this real subtle outline. So really what you're going to want to do, if anything, one, maybe change what it says, which you just double click on the T, it selects it, you type over it. Once you're good, you can scale, position, get it how you want. If you want to change the color of this very thin stroke outline, double click on the word stroke here, and it'll get your layer style panel up here on stroke. You can play with the size if you want to, but otherwise you just come down here to the color and you can pick any color that you want. You just don't want it to be too busy or distracting. It's a fine line. Next, close that. We've got our 3 stripes upper right. So that's this right here. I'll turn it off. You'll see it goes away. Turn it back on. Basically these stripes, the color is controlled by this color overlay. So if you want to keep them all the same color like I have them, just double click on the word color overlay. It'll get your layer style window, and you just click on this little black box here, and now you have your color picker. and you can make them anything you want. If you do want to control them independently, so make them not all the same color, turn off this color overlay right here, clicking on that little eyeball, and open up the layer folder. Now you can work on them independently. So we'll start with this middle one, and you can see I've made it red. So you can do that if you want to. Otherwise, just stick with the one that's on the layer folder. Now we have our vertical text. This is Bulldog currently, so I'm going to type something longer like Mavericks, or just Maverick. Now you can see it's not lining up right. We need to adjust it. Very simple. We already have the text layer selected. We're going to hold down Shift and click on the layer just below it. Now we have the text and the stripes. So you could use your arrow key and just move it up, but if you want to scale it, you can click on one of these anchor points. Again, I hold down Shift, scale it up, scale it down, move it around. You can fine tune it depending on what you type in there. But again, it's a text layer, so you change the color the same way. If you have the text layer selected and you go to your properties, you'll see it there. You go to your character, you'll see it there. And then if you have the text activated, you'll have a little option up here at the very top. And you can adjust the color to match the team that you're working for or working with. Here we have our sample logo. I put this in there because I think it's a nice touch. You're going to want to delete it, turn it off. You can drag and drop your own logo here, scale and position it right there if you want to, but that's optional. All right, now we've got our primary vertical text layer, which I put cheer in here so you would know, but it can be anything. It can be their mascot. You know, you might not want to put the word basketball there. You know, it's really long, so you can use these text layers to say whatever you want, and that's why I don't have like team name, city name, things like that, because you know it's up in the air on what you're going to put there in the first place. So we already know how to change what it says. We already know how to change the color of text layers. There is drop shadows on here, so if you want a flatter look, you can turn them off. And just like any layer style, you can double click on it to bring up the layer style window, and you can play around with the opacity, distance, size if you feel the need to. We have an optional highlight, so you might notice right here it's very subtle. It's a little lighter when it gets closer to the subject frame. So if I turn that off, it kind of flattens it out. So it's up to you if you want to use that or not. The opacity is only 20%. If you want it to be a little more noticeable, you can increase the opacity. Totally up to you. The blend mode's normal. You could try using like overlay if you have like a vivid color here. It just adds a little bit of a gradient look, almost like light is casting. You could even click on it and drag it over and have it on this side. You know, you got options, but that's what that is and why it's there. Next we have our subtext left. So over here you'll see it says 2026 Burke Burnett Cheer. So we already know how to change what it says, but we're going to go ahead and do it anyways. I'm going to double click on the T icon, and I'm going to add the word Bulldog so that it is intentionally way too long, because depending on what you put in here, it may be much less, it may be more, and it may not fit the space. And so if you don't already know how to do this, you can control how much space this takes up a few different ways. One is by increasing or decreasing this value for the size of your text. So I could drop this down to 20. It's going to make it smaller, therefore maybe a little less visible or legible. So more than likely, I'm going to undo that. What you want to do first is come over here. It says VA. This is kerning. Basically, kerning just represents the amount of space in between each character, and the value by default is set at 1300. I'm going to put in, I'm going to try 900. Hit enter. Pretty close, not quite enough, so we'll drop down to 800. And that's pretty close. So you could leave it like that, or you can dial it. You could go with 792, whatever is going to fit that space just right. But that's how you would modify it. because not everything is going to line up just perfectly. Moving on, we've got 3 stripes lower left. So down here, we've got these 3 stripes. We talked about the 3 stripes up here. It's exactly the same, so we won't repeat that. We have our subtext, which says varsity. While we're looking at these layers, I'm going to jump back over and remind you of this image right here. I did the name a little bit different. So I kind of stole this layer here to use for senior, junior, freshman, sophomore, etc. So let me show you what you would do. First off, you can change what it says by double clicking here. And I'm going to type in senior just for the visual effect. Now we have that text layer selected. Hold down shift, click on the layer below it. So now we have both selected. I'm still holding down shift, and I'm going to click and drag outward there we go, and you can line it up. Just keep in mind that you can come back and adjust it later. Once you get through all the layers, you need to fine tune it, you can do that. But that's how you would steal that layer to create this look right here. Which brings us to our subject name text layers. So it's in its own subfolder. I did that on purpose, just to keep it tidy. But I've got first name here, and then I've got last name. If you want this look, a single row, all you need to do is turn off the first name, and now we're going to use last name for full name. But it should be right oriented. So you see it's going to start there and it's going to work towards the left. So depending on how you set this up, you may need to make this text larger or smaller. You may need to move it over to start here instead of here. Just depends on the look that you're going for. Now I also have a highlight on this one, which can be turned off. It just gives the appearance of light casting down from above, a little bit of a gradient effect. And again, the opacity is adjustable, so you can make it more noticeable or less noticeable if you want to use it. Next we have senior, junior, sophomore, freshman. These are here for those of you who are doing things manually. If you're using automation, you'll have to set it up a little bit differently. But if you want to change the color of these, you'll notice we've got black and we've got white. It's very simple. Double click on the T. We're going to take our cursor over and click and drag to select the portion that we want to change. You can come up to the top. It's got a question mark there, but that's okay. Let's pick some blue so it's noticeable. We'll hit, while we're here, if that's the color we want, you'll notice this code right here. Hit Control or Command C, or even right click and not paste. Let's try it again. There we go. Copy. We'll click OK, because you're going to have to set this up once and you'll be good to go. Come down to the one below it. We're going to repeat the process. Select those stripes, come up here, Control or Command V, or right click paste to get the same exact color. You can keep them all consistent that way. And that's it for that. We do have the frame, so really all you would need to do here is change the color. It has its own color overlay, which we've been through, I don't know, 10 or 20 times probably in this video alone, but you can adjust the color to it there. If you're not going to use it, you can turn it off. You can turn this off. Like for this example, you would be turning those layers off you're not using. Now that I've butchered this, let's get it back the way it was. That's it for those text layers. All right. Still got a ways to go, but we're moving right along. Next, we've got our side accent stripes change color. So that's referring to the right side, the left side, these big bold ones. I'll turn it off, turn it on. You can see if you want them all to be the same, click right next to the word color overlay to turn the color overlay on. Double click the color overlay word itself. Get your color picker up here, and you can make them all one color just by selecting it one time. If you want them to be controlled independently, leave that color overlay off. Open these up. There's actually subfolders. I've got left side and I've got right side. So you will need to open up both of them, and then you can select the color overlay independently on each one. So just depends on how you want to set that up. You can also move these around if you want to, scale them up, scale them down, reposition them. I did that in some of the examples I was working with, but that's up to you whether you think that will be necessary or not. Next, we've got a paper texture. If I turn it off, it brightens it up a tiny bit, and you can barely notice this. The blend mode's set to multiply. I'm going to have to zoom in quite a bit, but you can kind of see this little texture right here. It's just something that I like to do to avoid just a plain, flat, solid color. Opacity is what, 50%, so you could make that a little more bold if you wanted to. Totally up to you. Next, we have that subject frame layer, which we already talked about how to scale it up, down, move it around, but one thing I didn't talk about was how to change the color. On the layer folder, it has these drop shadow layers, so it just gives you the appearance of some dimension, some layers. But if you open it up and select the shape layer itself, well, actually, you don't have to select it. You would have to click on the word gradient overlay that's on it. It's going to bring up your gradient picker, and I wasn't sure exactly how I wanted to do this, but you'll notice it's kind of bright in the middle, darker towards the edges. The idea is kind of just like, you know, how light works. If there's a light shining on this subject directly, then it's going to be brighter right here, and it's going to get darker. Just like if you put it in front of a backdrop and you have your softbox or your octobox pointed at them, it kind of represents what that would look like on the backdrop itself. So you'll click on this colored bar here to get your gradient picker up. Now, I have 3 points in here. You can simplify it. If you click this middle one, drag down and get rid of it, you can do that, and then you can move this one over and adjust it like that, but it's up to you. Basically, if you do that, it's this color transitioning to this color, which is perfectly fine. I had a third color in there, so basically the left one is going to be the lightest. So we can switch to this blue here. It doesn't look good right away, but I'm going to copy that code, hit OK, click on the middle one, and I'm going to paste the code, but then I'm going to come down and get just a little bit darker. Hit OK. I'm going to click on this third one, open it up, paste the code, and get it even a little bit darker. So that's just a quick demo. You may come back and just continue to fine-tune these. You might go a little less saturated. You could also move these depending on how much of the dark you want to creep in, how quickly you want it to transition. You can move these this way to get different, more spotlight effects. And again, you can ditch that middle one if you really want to simplify the process. Totally up to you. But that is how you control the color. And then, of course, if you strip it down, well, I guess it won't let you do that. That's it. Let's get it back because that's bothering me. There we go. All right, so we've got our upper subjects. You can drag and drop them, scale them, and position them inside this frame. It's just one thing to keep in mind is that with the layer mask, the way it's set up, it's kind of difficult to figure out how to do it. But if they position like that, that's not going to look quite right. So you'd have to manually mask off the edge of their legs. So try to keep it where it doesn't run off of the bottom. We have the layer mask, which if I turn that off, you can see what happens. It's set up perfectly for you. Here we have color spill lower legs. When I was making sample images, I didn't use this on everyone. Some of them I did, and then some of them I exaggerated it. But basically, this color kind of matches the background color, and it's just like a little bit of spill light, the nasty green spill light we hate on green screen. Same concept, but this could be a desired spill light. If I turn it off, you can see, that looks good too as well. So it's totally up to you, but the opacity is at 50%. You can make it more bold. You could reduce it. This is a gradient layer mask. So if you select that, come up to your gradient tool, Make sure up here that it's black to white, white to black, that it's linear right here. We've got 100%. You could now, well, let's, why is it no? There we go. We can come up here, and I think one thing is I still have it at 50%. So you can make it a lot more. Well, now I've switched onto a completely different layer. So this demo isn't working quite as well as what I did with this one right here. I brought that color cast up really high on him, which you can kind of see it a little bit more. So that's kind of what I was trying to demonstrate, but more than likely you can just leave it just like that. All right, next we have a optional warm contrast. So if I kind of zoom in on her, I'm going to turn it off. You can barely tell. It just adds a little bit of warm saturation and a little extra contrast. It's a color lookup. It's only at 10%. If I go to 100, you can really see what it does. That's too much. But again, it's something that's there if you want to use it. But if it looks better without it than with it, you just turn it off. Totally up to you. We're getting there. Next, we've got our foreground vertical accent text. So we kind of already talked about this. This is the one that's in the foreground. You just type over it. So I'm going to type the word Trojans. And then you can use your move tool, click on an anchor point, position it. I'm going to hold down Shift, scale it up, scale it down. I like it running off. You just fine tune it to what looks good for what you're creating. And we already talked about changing the color. This is transparent, so double click the word stroke. Use this right here if you want to change the color. All right, we've got our lower subjects almost done. So I went ahead and left some things in here. I open it up. We've got our sample subject. I'll turn her off, turn her on, but you can see there's some stuff left over. This is the contact shadow. It's a sample because it's only going to work for her, but it just kind of shows you what I did. I use a soft black brush, 20% fill, 20% opacity, and I just kind of painted it in. So if you're doing it by hand, you can see what I did. I also have these reusable soft ground shadows. These are in a lot of my templates, but if I turn her off, you can see, we'll turn this off. It's very subtle, but I'll turn them off and on. You can see this represents just kind of a soft ground shadow, not the contact shadow itself. So you could, if you want them to show up more, what is that, 10%? I'm going to hit the 2 on my keyboard. No, it didn't work. I have to do it manually. 22%. That's much more bolder. You can increase or decrease the opacity on these, but I say they're reusable. If you hold down Alt or Option on your keyboard, click and drag up just till you see the blue line. Now I've duplicated it, and so now I've got an extra one that I can use on another subject. And so what I kind of do is I just put my subjects in here, select them all, Controller Command G, and I just put them in their own group with their name. And then I reuse these for each one, and they're all in there. So that's a lot of manual work. So again, I know that's not for everyone, but I left these in here just in case you want to reuse those. And then I also left this reflection layer in here. You can see I have gauge, made it a smart object. If I open it up, it's just that portion of it. I've got my Gaussian blur on here. If I double click, it's set at 6. I've got the opacity at 70. I've got a gradient mask on there so that it fades out a little bit as it goes towards the bottom. And then another thing you can see, if I turn this off and we get 100%, you can see my puppet warp. So if I turn the puppet warp off, that's what it looked like. Turn it on, that's when I did this right here. I may have just blown a few people's minds that have never really done any of that. It looks a lot more crazy than it really is. Just takes a little bit of practice, and in fact I've got a video on my YouTube channel. You can check it out on how I do that. So that was a lot that I wanted to explain there for this subject layer folder. You just put them in there, scale them, position them. If you're not doing all the ground shadows or reflections, You want to hide the feet. This layer mask has a red X through it because it's disabled. Right click on it to enable it, or you can just hold down Shift, click it. You get the idea. It's a gradient mask, and so now you may reposition her a little bit differently, you know, just depending on what looks good. But that's how you would hide the feet, is to enable this layer mask. This right here is that same warm contrast that's optional. Turn it off, turn it on, adjust the opacity. Use it if you want to. Use it if it makes your images look better. This right here, hide feet, that applies on the other files as well. So anything that would ordinarily possibly show feet, you can activate that layer mask. I think the only thing I didn't cover, which we'll squeeze it in, this is already long. Let's make it a little bit longer. Let's say you want to adjust this. Select the mask, select your gradient tool. We kind of already did this a little bit. Make sure you're black to white, white to black. Make sure you're on linear. Make sure you got 100% opacity. And just click and drag. It never fails. I always do it backwards. But you see you've got these little anchors. I can swing this down, grab the top one, and you can adjust it. Obviously you don't want anything showing through, so we don't want to come higher than anything that's going to be behind her. But you can make it as gradual. You can angle it. Hold down Shift to keep it straight. You can fine tune any gradient layer mask on anything. That's that easy. And that's it. Okay, we finally got through it. Sheesh, I'm gonna need a drink of water and a nap. No time for that. It's August. I've got a photo shoot like tomorrow and the day after and the day after. But hopefully I've covered everything. If there is anything at all that I haven't covered and you still have questions, shoot me an email, don@thirdcreative.com. I always try to stay on top of it, get back to you as quick as I can. Sometimes it's quicker than others. But what are you going to do? That is all for this one. Time to move on. And thank you for watching. Until the next one, we'll see you.